How's it going, OFPs? And welcome to another episode of the Off-Field Players Podcast, the only podcast for aspiring sports industry professionals. I'm your host, Philip Hall, and I hope everybody's having an awesome week or weekend by the time you're listening to this. And yeah, if you haven't gotten a chance to go back and watch the recent informational interview that I did last week, make sure to go check it out. The interview that I did with Nicole Green. Fantastic guest. It was amazing to have. So if you weren't tuned in the last week, make sure to go check that out. But today I have another informational interview lined up. It is informational interview number 5 now of the Off-Field Players Podcast. And this guest I have on today, she's actually very, very special to me because we both went to the same college, St. John's University. We're actually classmates at some points in our time at St. John's. So, but before I go any further with introducing my guest, I want to remind everybody to make sure to, if you're watching the video version of this episode, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for the YouTube channel for the Off-Field Players Podcast. If you're listening to the audio version, either on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or Radio Public, make sure to follow the podcast to stay up to date with upcoming episodes. And also make sure to follow the social media accounts of the Off-Field Players Podcast on Instagram and TikTok at OFP_podcast. Again, it's at OFP_podcast on Instagram and TikTok. So with that being said, I'm going to go move forward to introducing my guests for the Off-Field Players Podcast informational interview number 5 for today. And ladies and gentlemen, OFPs, allow me to introduce Miss Ivy Bourke. How's it going, Ivy?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm
happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. It's definitely great to have you on here.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Again, backstory between how me and Ivy know each other is that we were classmates at St. John's. She is a recent graduate of a master's program at Drexel University in Philadelphia. But for undergrad, she was a part of the sport management program at St. John's with me. So she actually graduated a year early. So she graduated a year before I did. So definitely have some ties there. And she's had very much a fantastic career to date, working in the sports industry, achieving her lifelong dream, and just really being so dedicated to trying to grow within herself as an off-field player. And, just from what I've been able to see from her from afar, she's been doing a fantastic job and just growing her career and just also, handling the adversity that that she was going through during her time at school. But Ivy, I'm not going to take the spotlight away from you. I'm going to let you go a little bit more into that in today's episode.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. I mean, we went through a lot together during our our time at St. John's, between the athletic department and class and everything. So yeah, 100% greatest classmate ever, Philip Hall, right there.
Well, I'm flattered to have that, but yeah. Well, Ivy, just to let the OFPs just to get to know you a little bit better. Talk a little bit about yourself. Your upbringing, like your backstory. The hometown that you're from. Let's give the OFPs an introduction about who Ivy Bourke is.
Yeah, so I am from Woodbridge, New Jersey. If anybody knows where that is, Governor Phil Murphy just said that Central Jersey is a real place. So thank you, Governor Phil Murphy, because now people cannot debate me that I am from North Jersey. Anyway, so I grew up in Woodbridge, New Jersey. And now I live in Point Pleasant Beach. Shout out to all the Jersey Shore watchers. It's not actually how it is here. So if you ever come and visit, please stay out of my town and stop being obnoxious in the summer. But yeah, so I am a fellow sports management alum, class of 2022 from St. John's University. Go Red Storm. Hopefully Rick Pitino has us this year with us winning and everything like that. Other than that, I interned at our athletic department at St. John's doing facilities operations and athletic events for 2021 from April to December. So I was there for all of the upgrades for the facilities and quoting and doing all those crazy stuff. After that, I ran pretty much a lot of basketball games by myself, as Phil knows. Other than that, I started my master's in sports business at Drexel in September of this past year, and I just finished it at the end of August. So there's that. I'm happy I'm done now. But other than my educational background, last year during the NHL season, I picked up a job doing game day assistant for the New Jersey Devils, where I pretty much help the marketing and activations department pick contestants for the coin shuffle and to ride the Zamboni and everything like that. As Phil knows, I'm a big New Jersey Devils fan, so any opportunity I had to work for that organization, I was there immediately. But other than that, my full-time job now is I work for USA Today's Sports Wire photography agency called Imagn Content Services, and I do NIL licensing for commercial and editorial use, both college and high school athletes.
Yeah. Oh, right on, Ivy. I mean, definitely like a lot of exciting experiences just from, what I know about you following your journey, and also, for what the OFPs can now learn about you, just and you and up and coming. And I want to point out one thing that you said about, being at St. John's and, being a part of the facilities operations and athletic event staff as an intern. And, it's really great to, just have the OFPs know, because, most of the listeners are either, like going in they are in high school right now, or going into college and still trying to find their way in the sports industry, like early on. And it's also great to just hear about your experience at St. John's, so it can allow the OFPs to understand that, hey, there's opportunities for them to get their start being on campus. And, as far as, understanding the value of trying to get a full-on college experience, being able to do internships like the one that you did was something that, the OFPs can seek inspiration from.
Yeah, I think it's really crucial to always try and be a part of your athletic program, even if you're in a D2, D3 school. Like, those athletic departments really need support, and they are the best, I think, one of the best places where you can learn everything about how games run and everything. I really think that it's the best place to start if you can.
Yeah, especially if you're still a student. So definitely take Ivy's advice in that regard. If you're a college student listening to this and still trying to find other opportunities, I mean, like it's still early in the semester, so definitely reach out to your athletic departments at your university or college and see what opportunities they have over there.
100%. I think that it's crucial because I think that it's sometimes the last place that college students look to get experience, especially if you're a sports management major. It's you're can I work for my athletic department? I don't know. But always use your professors to your advantage. If they think, hey, I work part-time in the athletic department, half of our professors did in sports management, use them to your advantage to get somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Ivy, going a little bit more further into, just your backstory, growing up in Jersey, I'm sure it was an experience. You had New York City right across the way.
Yeah.
And, of course, if you, being a hockey fan coming up, supporting the New Jersey Devils, when was your first introduction to sports when you were coming up, whether that was a sport you watched, a sport that your parents, introduced you at a young age, or if you have any siblings, if your siblings put you onto one sport, what was your first introduction to the sports world, I would say?
So it does come from the New Jersey Devils. A little bit of a backstory is my dad was an original season ticket member right when the team came from Colorado to Jersey. So he had those tickets. I wasn't alive at that point because the Devils came in the 80s. But ever since then, my mom and I had season tickets when I was in high school. So I would go to a lot of games. But ever since I was little, my mom says all the time that ever since I came out of the womb, I was a Devils fan. And I think that that's very accurate. It's the only team that has New Jersey's name. The Giants, the Jets, the Red Bulls, NYCFC, they all play here, but it's not the New Jersey Jets, New Jersey Giants. I mean, I know Giants fans argue that it's the New Jersey Jets, not the New York Jets.
Right.
But I mean, it was just a completely different experience to watch essentially a homebred team of just that it represents Jersey, and that down to the nitty-gritty is just the team for the state. Because Phil, I know you aren't from New Jersey, but a lot of North Jersey people, they follow all the New York teams. Then where I grew up in Central Jersey is the diehard Devils fans. And then right when you get to the shore and all the way to Philly to the end of the state, it's all Philly fans.
Right.
So it's this state is just crazy with sports. I mean, but being a New Jersey Devils fan, I pride myself on it, especially after the past few seasons we've had. We've been lucky. But I mean, through and through, the Devils is where my love for sports began, for sure.
Did you play any sports growing up in high school or when you're like younger?
Here's a good argument or a debate if anybody wants to take this snippet, is that I was a cheerleader for 10 years. People debate that that's not a sport. I fully 100% think that it is. But I mean, other than that, I was just cheerleader and I ran track and I did relays, and I wasn't really like I wasn't a hockey player. My mom was like, "It's too expensive. I'm not buying you equipment." So yeah, I mean, I did track and I did cheer, but unfortunately did not have the hockey dreams come true. But yeah.
Hey, you still had like that surrounding of athletics again,
Yes.
cheerleaders, being at football games, basketball games. I mean, like I consider it a sport. I don't care what anybody else says. Like, I think because like when I see just the movements of cheerleaders, like how they're bending, jumping in the air, tossing each other up. I mean, that's hard.
It really is hard. It really is. And the injuries, career-ending injuries can occur when you're in high school cheer or even in youth cheer, especially during competitions, when every weekend you're literally putting your blood, sweat, and tears into performing for an award like I did. It was I completely I hate when people say that it's not a sport. But yeah.
Well, actually, fun fact, knowing that me and Ivy are both St. John's alum, actually our cheerleading team one year did compete to go like for a national championship. Like I think it was the National College Cheerleading Championship. So yeah, it's a little bit of a snippet there in case anybody wants to debate if cheerleading is a sport. Like, hey, if there's a championship for it, it is considered a sport to me. So,
yeah, same thing with the dance team too.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ivy, like, as far as just an experience, whether that was in high school or in college, either at St. John's or Drexel, when was there experience when you saw yourself wanting to work in the sports industry? What was the moment you had that made you go like, I want to be in this industry?
So, fun fact about me is I went to a vocational technical high school. So what that is it's usually where you go into high school and the equivalent is you learn a trade like HVAC, carpentry, plumbing, mechanics, any of that stuff, or you choose a different sector. So the one that I went to in Jersey had an arts program. So that was essentially you could choose between film or theater, dance. I chose multimedia art and digital design. If Mr. T, my shop professor, is probably going to listen to this, shout out to you. But he taught me a lot, and I realized with going to Devils games in my high school years that I wanted to be in the sports industry. Yeah, like I entered Votech thinking like, hey, like I love art, let me do that for a living. But I did learn a lot there. I fully credit the program, and I still love like drawing and stuff today. But I just realized like that's not what I want to do for a career. But I was the editor-in-chief of a literary magazine at Votech. So I was like, hey, like I love to write and I love the New Jersey Devils. So I used to I tried to combine those passions, and I was like, hey, like let me write for sports. So then when I went to St. John's, I was like, hey, let me be in the journalism program. And right when I started it, I was like, actually, like, I want to be on the other side of sports. I want to be in the business, the nitty gritty part of sports. So that's why I switched to sports management. But I will say, I did keep my minor in journalism, and I'm really happy that I did. But it clicked for me. Like, I can tell you exactly when it clicked for me when I was at a Devils game. There is the first goalie of the New Jersey Devils. His name is Chico Resch, number 1. He is the broadcaster for the radio broadcaster for the team. I love Chico so much. He is such a sweetie pie. And as a season ticket member, you get the opportunity to, talk to them. And if you want to like just randomly see them, like all the Devils alum, like the bigger ones, Marty Brodeur, Patty Eliash, they're always walking around the arena. And they always, if a fan asks them to stop, they usually do, and they talk to you. So Chico is a talker. So I was talking to him and I was like, I was like going from a player to, like working in broadcasting for the team. Like, do you love it still? And he was like, yeah, like I completely like love it. It kept my love for the sport going and like my team and this whole thing. So like him like inspiring me to like combine the two of like what I wanted to love, like what I love, which is writing and sports. I think that he really inspired me to just go and try and be in the sports industry.
But
Yeah.
was there like a favorite story from high school that you wrote about, where that was a story about an athlete that was on a particular team at your school, or did you do some side stories for players on the Devils that you help promote your high school paper?
I mean, I did both, but one that really stuck out to me was one of the kids that I went to high school with. He is currently serving as a Marine right now, but he did an Ironman in high school, which is you were in 3 varsity sports. So one right after the other. So
Right.
he did, I want to say, what did he do? He did baseball, soccer, and cheerleading. So, and he just looked tired all the time. But I mean, like, other than that, like, the Devils, like, just writing about their season, like, they had the one season where we ended the drought and we went to the playoffs. So I wrote about that a lot. And especially I was lucky enough to be at every single home game for that playoff run against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I feel like just combining, like, just being surrounded by, like, a vocational technical school where sports, like, high school sports, like, some high schools live, breathe, diet. And then, like, the high school that I went to, like, we focused on our shops, which is our career sectors there. But we also had, like, these kids who loved their sports too. I mean, like, not a lot of people showed up to a lot of their games, but they were really passionate about what they did and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely awesome to hear, and definitely, a very unique experience for sure. Like, writing stories, because I say, like the one thing that I love about, like reaching out to people and also about doing the podcast is the aspect of storytelling, not
Yes.
just telling the story of, of my podcast, but also just letting somebody tell their story about their upbringing. And what you did in high school, it really just goes to show like how important a story can be for the reader, and even
100%.
just the inspiration that they can get from it.
Yeah. You have
Yeah.
to, like, there's certain stories where you read it and you become inspired, and like I've had that before, not just like me doing editor-in-chief stuff in high school and at St. John's, but like in general, there's just certain like sports stories that I read and I'm like, or I watch them. Like Real Sports by Brian Gumbel is literally one of my favorite shows ever. And every single episode, I'm like taken in and I listen to everything that they have to say, and it inspires me honestly too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, was there like somebody that inspired you that wanted to get into that kind of route in sports through journalism?
I mean, there's a few, but in general, I think that like sports journalism specifically is a very male dominated field still. Yeah, like women, like there's female journalists who write for sports. They're usually hired by the team and they do like the team.com stuff and, but you still don't see a lot of them like writing for Sports Illustrated. You don't see a lot of them writing for CBS Sports. So I think that being very rooted in how my mom raised me on how to be like a strong and independent woman who has goals and to go after them no matter what happens and what's in front of you, like what obstacles are there. I think that seeing that and trying and loving sports so much really like pushed me to be like, I want to do this really bad. So I'm going to do everything that I can to make it happen.
They're trying to be a trailblazer.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely the best way I'll describe it. And I knew when I first met you, we did talk a lot about that. How sports industry, it's historically male dominated, but with the changing of the times, now we're starting to see more women, reach higher levels in sports organizations. Start to get those journalism jobs that you talk about, for like big sports publications. And, and it's a beautiful thing to see because, the one thing that I really strongly promote on the podcast is, the importance of diversity, the importance of, gender equality across sports, because, when we think about OFPs, I want to reach everybody. I want to reach, men, I want to reach women, I want to reach, LGBTQ, I want to reach, foreigners. I want to do everything I can to, be able to promote, just how open the sports industry can be. Because when we think about the characters we see on the field and the characters that we'll see in the front office, or really just in general, the characters that you see in corporate America, you're working amongst like a lot of different people.
Yes.
And you're going to meet different people from different backgrounds, of different religions, of different sexual orientations. And in order for me to prep the OFPs into understanding these things, it's important that they know what they're going to get themselves into when it comes to building those work relations.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, like, everything that I went through at St. John's. I mean, I'm not going to go through it here, but like, one of the things that I've gone through, especially after graduating with my undergrad and before going into my master's degree, is through a lot of career guidance. Like, I know you saw how it was at St. John's with who we had as ours, but I mean, you're constantly told like network. But networking isn't always the answer in sports. And a lot of people don't realize that when they tell us that. Yeah, it's all about who you know and everything, but you also need to be able to build yourself and sell yourself to stand apart from the pack. And I think that that's another key thing that especially people who are sports management majors or whoever wants to work in sports, we were told, I will never forget this, David Headland, head of sports management, said, you guys are not fans. You're trying to work in this industry, so don't lead as a fan. And I think that ever since he said that to me, that's always been on the forward of my mind, especially when I've been applying for jobs or sitting in interviews for jobs as well, is that, like, you're so excited, but you need to also build yourself up. Like, like getting a job in sports is very hard. It really is. We all know. We all know, even internships, it's very competitive. But you need to allow yourself to not only be yourself and be undeniably you, no matter what happens. Don't try and force yourself into this model that you think is what people want, because that's not what they want. They want somebody who's unique. They want somebody who's dedicated. They want somebody who's hardworking. And they want somebody who is willing to learn. If you could circle that and write that down, you need to be somebody who is willing to learn and to adapt to anything that's thrown at you in sports. I have learned that in every single, my internship, the Devils, this job that I have now. You need to be able to learn and to adapt the knowledge and use it to your advantage. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I could offer is that.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said is everything that I always try to promote on the podcast. I mean, the idea of not leading as a fan. I mean, that's important. I mean, like saying that you're a fan in a job interview for a sports organization, it's like you're saying a cuss word during a job interview.
Exactly, literally.
I think that's the reminder of the mentality that you have to go into. It's like just do everything you can to not say that word. I mean, it's a bad word in the interview process for a sports organization. So it's definitely great that you point that out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, other than that, like, there's a lot that, like, you need to not only take yourself seriously, but you need others to take you seriously. And that's something that I have personally faced. Being a woman who wants to do facilities and event management for an arena or a stadium, people do not take me seriously. Like, I will never forget this. I will not say who the employer was, but I will share this. In one of my interviews that I had before I got this job, it was to be athletic facilities coordinator at a university. And they asked me, they were like, so why did you intern at St. John's? And I said, well, I love facilities. I love my event management class. And I really thought that since I loved it so much that I wanted to try it and do it. And they asked me, the guy goes, why are you a woman and why do you want to be in that sector of sports? And I just looked at this person over the Zoom call and I was like, I cannot believe you're expecting me to answer this question. Because, again, they do not take certain people seriously with where they want to be in sports. And I will never forget that interview ever again. But like I said, I mean, just another thing that I would say is when you're going into the sports industry, when you have the opportunity to do multiple internships, try different sectors. Don't stay in one. That's another thing. Try different sectors, see what you actually like the most, and give yourself the opportunity to be like, hey, like on day one, you might love it, but by the end of your internship, like the 3-month period, the 6-month period is over, you might not like it anymore. So, and I think that that's crucial too, is you need to find out what you like and what you don't like before you enter the field as a professional also.
Yeah, it's definitely important that you point that out. Just the versatility of trying to not be attached to one department. And, you know, and I've probably said this before in a previous episode, but, you know, it's good that you want to have aspirations to go into marketing, communications, ticket sales, wherever that may be. But I feel like it's also very important when you're in organizations that learn everything you can about other departments. Like go talk to, you know, the guy that's doing accounting, go talk to the lady that's, you know, handling communications for the players or something like that. You know, I think when you have a broader understanding of the different levels or different areas within an organization, I think you'll be respected more because you're picking the brains of others and learning new skills that maybe you might want to integrate into your work that you probably didn't know about or didn't take into consideration unless you went to go talk with them. So it's definitely great that you point that out, and also something that, you know, I try to follow in myself as well. So, you know, great minds think alike, as the old saying goes. So Ivy, just knowing that mentorship is an important part of career development and something that I promote heavily, like for the OFPs, you know, who do you consider to be a mentor that helped you get your foot in the door in the sports industry?
I think I have 4 of them actually, which is kind of a lot. But one of them is St. John's. If your universities have this, I fully advocate for you to take advantage of this program. St. John's had a program where an alum of your major, they would mentor you. I had Cody Natasha, who was general counsel for the Yankees. He works for the New York Roadrunners now. But through a lot of my struggles during my last year at St. John's, he was there for me, and he really did help me, like, not only bring me up, but also help me with understanding how to go about the job market and how to, again, like I said, how to make yourself stand apart from the pack. Other than him, fellow GA, Ariana. Phil, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Ariana, I love her dearly. I still talk to her this day. I saw her like a few months ago. I went to see her. But if anyone has inspired me to keep going, no matter what has happened to me, it's Ariana. She has always been like this shining light in like the darkness of like the sports industry. And I really like through everything at St. John's, like being thrown to the wolves and everything, she's always said, you know, like no matter what happens, you're you and you're strong, you know. And I think that just having her there with me through a lot of that was very beneficial for me. Other than her, I mean, Rob Romano, best professor in the sports management.
Professor Romano, shout out to him.
Professor Romano, he knows how much I love him dearly. He was one of the people who looked me in the eyes and told me to go to Drexel instead of staying at St. John's. He was like, Ivy, if you're not happy here, go. And he used to be a professor at Drexel, and he told me, he was like, I fully support you going. You need to grow your wings and fly. And every single thing that he taught me in I took his graduate level legal aspects of sports management class. He had me like in such a trance listening to him and like actually learning in that program. He is a phenomenal professor, and I will continue to say that. But he really inspired me to always push forward as well. But lastly, One of the professors I had at Drexel, her name is Professor Napoli. I love her dearly too. She recently has been helping me try and gauge the transition from, being a grad student to going into the workforce, because I was working and doing school at the same time. Mm-hmm. But, fully transitioning into trying to continue to grow, not only as a professional, but in the field as well. She's been really helping me with that transition, and I owe a lot to her as well. But yeah, you need a mentor, especially in the sports industry. If you can find anyone to confide in that will listen, that is willing to help you. A lot of them were our professors, I can say that. But other than the professors, like I said, if your university has a mentor program that they set you up with an alum in your major, I 100% recommend that program. Because not only, I think I talk to Cody once a month or something like that, but he, every single time, he would take the time and block off an hour of his legal counsel day at the New York Yankees, driving home from the Bronx to Long Island to talk to me and to give me guidance. So I will say that if you have the opportunity to do one of those programs or just have a personal relationship with your professor, do it. No hesitation, just do it. That's my best way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, just you and me knowing how awesome our professors were at St. John's that taught the sport management classes. They really do emphasize the importance of just mentorship. Networking. Promoting yourself. I mean, I can't. It's out of all the professors that I had at St. John's, I would say that the sport management professors were the most influential when it came to knowing what we wanted, and even just stressing the importance of finding a mentor. But I think also for me, I really, since growing up, I've always been I always saw the value in academics and school and education. But I know one thing that I really should talk a lot more is just the importance of respecting your professors. And and I get it. Some of us had that teacher that we didn't like in high school or or got on our nerves, and they gave us a hard time. But I think when you separate the teachers that you probably may not like to the teachers that you do like and have respect for, go towards that side, because the one thing I think that really helped me when it came to getting my internship experiences was the relationships I developed with my professor. I'll speak on one here. I don't know if you had a Professor McGee.
I did.
McGee? Yeah, Professor McGee. Oh gosh, yeah,
I
godsend. Did. All the way through.
One of the best professors.
Yeah. I mean, Professor McGee. For anybody tuning into this that's at St. John's right now, if you have space for an elective, I highly recommend taking a class being taught by Timothy McGee. I mean, oh my God, he's a godsend.
He will help anyone. He always used you as the example too. He was like, I don't know if any of you know this kid. His name is Philip Hall, and half of my class was like, we know Philip. He was that kid. He was so dedicated, and he was one of the best students I ever had. And he was I'm always willing to help everybody. He was I helped Phil and this whole thing. And I was like, yeah, Phil, before I even knew what internship he helped you with. But I was rooting for you, and I was like, yes. But yeah, 100%. If you're at St. John's or you're planning on going to St. John's, take him immediately. Immediately register for his class. Absolutely.
Hands down, best professor you'll have during your St. John's experience. Also a good professor to know as well. Yes. But really why I hype up Professor McGee so much is that he was able to see something in me that was hey, I can help out Philip in a way I can, because I know he shows up to class every day, he tunes in, he answers my questions. And I think when you have that mentality as a student that's trying to get ahead, and having a plan after graduation, then it's very important to have those kind of relationships with your professor where he's not even just being in their class per se, but really just using someone as a resource to help you get a recommendation, set you up with a job interview. Because the one thing that I realize is that there's going to be one professor that is going to possibly help you get your first job coming out of school.
Yeah.
And when you find that professor, definitely take advantage of the relationship and the mentorship that they're able to provide to you to be able to achieve those career goals that you have, and also helping you setting up that plan once you're out of school and once you're out in the real world.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
Oh yeah. but definitely Professor McGee. I highly recommend if you're a St. John's student or if you're an incoming St. John's student. But just talking a little bit more about the competitive nature of the sports industry, and and me, this, we know that there are thousands of people trying to go after the same job, just for anything really. From sweeping the floors to cleaning toilets to selling tickets to scanning tickets at the door, selling the merchandise at the team store. I mean, everybody's trying to get a job in the sports industry. So a question that I want to pose to you is, in understanding the competitive nature of trying to get one of these jobs in the industry, what would you say are some of the current challenges for someone that wants to work in the sports industry right now?
I mean, I think, like I said earlier, being taken seriously is a really big one. But I also think that standing apart from your fellow applicants is another one. I mean, I could speak upon our experience, but we sit in interviews and we can already gauge how it's going by question 3. Are we one of their top applicants? We can immediately tell by not only how they're asking the questions, but how they're treating us after our answers. I've noticed that. I don't know about you, but I've gotten the feel with certain interviews. And yeah, I mean, the only thing that I could really say is put yourself out there as much as you can. Even if you think that, there are so many different sectors of sports. I could take myself as an example. If you told me in my freshman year of college that I would be working in NIL, a thing that was only established and ruled upon in 2021, I would tell you that you were crazy. But listen, put yourself out there and do not limit yourself either on what you think you can do. I think that that's another thing. But always, just try and network. I mean, I think that your classmates are one of the easiest people to network with. It's not only just the alum or anyone else. Your fellow classmates in your classes, not only will making connections with them not only benefit you in the future, but you can also lean on each other in the future as well. And I think that that's something that St. John's taught me as well. Is just if you're in a class with somebody, immediately connect with them on LinkedIn. If you're in a group project with somebody, same thing, connect with them. If they're in the same major as them, connect with them. If you see them out somewhere, connect with them. If you work with them in the athletic department, like Bill and I, connect with them immediately, because you never know where that's going to take you. And it's also not just that, but just try and just be aware also when you're applying for jobs. We all know the pinnacle of quote for quote ghost jobs now. I've had my run-in with some of them, but just know that regardless of what you're doing, just keep going. And I highly recommend, don't just use LinkedIn to apply for jobs in sports. Use Teamwork Online.
Yep.
Use it, because that is one of the only places where I think that people and those bigger leagues and the teams actually look at the applications. Don't quote me on that, but I really think that that's one of the places where they actually take the time and do that, because it's such a small pipeline that people who know about Teamwork Online also.
Yeah, it's great that you plug that, Ivy, because usually when I do a solo episode, I do talk about the open. Right, I do give out information about job openings and I reference Teamwork Online as one. Again,
Yeah.
they don't sponsor me, so I can't. Like, I'm not getting paid to say that, but but I am pointing that out. Like, yeah, there are certain websites that you can go to, not just LinkedIn, to apply for when it comes to looking for a job in sports. And yeah, just even getting your name out there, like just exploring. I mean, teams and different sports organizations, like they put up job postings all the time, like not just on LinkedIn, but on Teamwork Online or Work in Sports. Like there's a few other websites that you can go to as well, or even go if you're trying to go down the team route. The teams, they have like a tab on their website for different job openings that they have, and there's your source there. But I do want to point something out on what you said about connecting with your classmates, and yeah, it's pretty much you preaching to the choir of how me and you connected. So
yeah,
definitely that there. But yeah, I mean, you think about when it comes to college, like there again, depending on what school you go to, there's thousands of people that you'll come across, but you definitely want to keep the ones that can help you or help you bring value, like after you're done with school, there, because like when you're going to college, you'll have friends that you make in freshman year that you may not have your senior year.
exactly.
And like they'll and you'll go through those stages to try to find your people. And when you do find your people, that's where things are going to click, especially and it's a bonus if those people are within the same field that you're trying to get into. So definitely do everything you can to lift each other up, motivate each other, and also stay connected after graduation. Just like me and Ivy.
Yes, I completely advocate for that. Like, if you see somebody in your classes that you're like, this person, or you see the potential that they have, 100% connect with them on LinkedIn, because you'll never know when you need that. Well, not only do you need them, but like for anything really. Like, I was so happy when you asked me to be on here. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So Ivy, just going into, I want to go a little bit more into the experiences you've had working in sports. So, you've interned with St. John's, you worked with the New Jersey Devils, and now you're working for, Imagn Content Services for their NIL team. So, just kind of give the OFPs like an idea of what these experiences entailed. Like, what were you doing? Like, what were some of the skills you picked up, when you were working in these roles, and even, go a little bit more into what you're doing now, because, again, I'll make sure to leave Ivy's information to her LinkedIn down below in the description. But just give us an idea of what it's like to be at Imagn and what you've provided to the team so far.
Yeah, so I'll start with St. John's. I mean, like I said, I started that internship. I had my interview and I started 2 weeks later when no one was in the school at all. It was 2021. Nobody was there.
Right.
So, like, I made that 3-hour commute one way to do what I love. So, shout out to myself for doing that, my past self. But that internship taught me everything that I know in sports. Like, I will never forget, like, from April to August, before everybody started to come back, like the basketball players for practice and everything, I was in the nitty-gritty of a lot of stuff. I was hand measuring the dugouts for new designs for them. I was quoting stuff. I was quoting cubbies for the softball field. I was quoting turf. I was doing all of this stuff for this athletic program. But the second that the basketball players came back, everything, like, not only clicked for me, but I was like, wow, like, I'm working in this athletic department now. For anybody that doesn't know, our St. John's, because there's 2 St. John's universities, the one that we went to is a basketball heavy school because we do not have a football team. So when the basketball team was having practice, everybody came out of their offices to sit in the depths of Carnesecca Arena to watch them. So the second that they came out on the practice court, I was like, wow, I'm here. Other things that, like, that internship taught me was time management is a big one, but also how you need to be willing to do the small, quote for quote, small tasks. Like, for example, without being asked, I wouldn't have known how to lay decals on the court 20 minutes before doors opened at UBS Arena for that game. I was the one doing it on my hands and knees with my student ID card, taking the bubbles out of it. It was me. I was doing it. So without saying yes to that, I wouldn't have learned that. I wouldn't have learned how to use the scoreboard. I wouldn't have learned how to do instant replay. I wouldn't have learned how to change hoops on a basketball, hoop. Who in their right mind was like, let the intern do that? I don't know. But I learned how to do it, and I was happy to do it. The same thing goes with other things in facilities. Facilities is insane. And especially at a university, there's so many. Like St. John's has 9 facilities, if you count DAC, I believe. Yeah. The track, but it was a lot. And the daily ticketing, we would get emails constantly like, can you come fix this? Can you come fix that? We needed to do room checks. We need to check the locker rooms, all this stuff. Without that internship, I would not have known the instant mindset of what it's like to work in sports. So like I said, I highly recommend, please go to your athletic department and ask them if they need an intern. More than likely they will say, yes, we need you immediately. When can you start? I can 100% guarantee that. But with that, all my experience there, it really opened up a lot of opportunity for me. I will say that. But the New Jersey Devils job, I will be completely honest with you, I saw the job posting and I applied for it. My boss, Samantha, love her, interviewed me. And she was like, wow, can you read a timeline? And I was like, yeah, I can, because Ariana taught me how to read one. With every single thing, what time on the shot clock, what ad is it, what button it is on the thing, and everything else. Because of Ari, I knew how to read one of them. And it was just I will be completely honest with you, when we did our training for the Devils, I was the only one that knew how to read it. So, whatever you want to take with that. But yeah, I'm still going to come back for the Devils this season, but nice. to do it part-time. But game day assistant, it is a lot. You are doing the craziest things to get people to say yes to you to be on the Jumbotron. If you can believe it, people will look at you and be like, do you even work for the Devils? And then you show them your ID, hey, I actually work here and I'm asking you if you want to be on the Jumbotron. And they say, yeah, no, thanks. When the prize is I'm not even kidding. There has been multiple times where I've gone up to families with kids, because we have 2 different Zambonis. Fun fact, if you're a Devils fan, there's an M&M Zamboni, which is all ages. We usually put children on there. And then there's a 21 plus Zamboni because it's Cutwater Spirit. So you can't put an under 21-year-old on the Cutwater Zamboni. So multiple times, I would go up to, I would see this, these cute little kids with, the Devils logo painted on them and, cute little things. And I would go up to their parents. We get them down there, and then they have, a panic attack because they don't want to do it. And I was I completely understand. If I was 5 years old and you're telling me to go on the Zamboni that's, 25 feet high up in the air without my mom, I think I would cry too. Because it's that terrifying and it's ice. I completely understand that. But the amount of people where it's hey, all you have to do is race your friend and you get a signed jersey. And they're like, no, I shouldn't even be here, is what they usually say. I took off from work. I shouldn't be here. I don't want anybody seeing me on the Jumbotron. That's usually, that's the best excuse I've gotten. But, other than that, I love doing that stuff because I'm surrounded by people who are passionate about the sport as well. My teammates are my fellow game day assistants, but they're also the Woo crew, which are the hype crew for the Devils. They're all sweet people. I love them all so much. Shout out Samaj and Joe. But, that job, I will get home at 3:00 in the morning, sometimes working those games, those playoff games at the end when we were the playoff series against the Rangers a few months ago. I got home 4:00 in the morning the one time, but it was 100% worth it for me. Not only because I was amongst playoff hockey, but it was also I grew up watching this team and I'm so happy for them also. But like, I draw the line with like not showing that. So like, for example, there's some people that I work with who are real fans, you know, and they'll stand and watch the game when there's stuff to do. When you can't be doing that. You have to put your job first. Like, yeah, like I'm a fan, but I will always do what's on my list first before I even stand and watch the game for the rest of the game. I always make sure that I take care of everything that I need, but you know, that's what happens sometimes. But I mean, I'm going to be honest. This USA Today job fell in my lap. I don't know how it did, but like it was, I was looking on LinkedIn and I applied for this job. And I was like, okay, like, let's see where this goes. The full title of it is Sports Licensing Coordinator. So, and then underneath in the job description, my boss handcrafted it himself and said, hey, like, we need somebody to do NIL licensing for us. So, needless to say, I was like, well, I mean, I know what NIL is. I know the basics of what it is. I've never worked in it before. So this is going to be an interesting thing to do. But I mean, I will say it has been a lot to learn in the best way with the changing regulations, that ongoing case right now and on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, I saw that. It has something to do with like in certain states, like they haven't like finalized all the regulations for what kind of NIL endorsement an athlete can get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's been an adjustment for sure. I mean, like my specific job is on the back end of where like if brands want, you know, imagery for their campaigns. I mean, I worked on a big campaign. If anybody wants to watch it, go watch one of the ads for the Buick See Her Greatness campaign for women's basketball. I curated the images
LinkedIn,
for
by
it.
the way.
I curated the images for it, and it was one of the happiest moments of my life to see that literally on live television. But it was one of the best things that I've done. But I mean, it's been a lot to learn. I'm going to be honest, like knowing the wraparound with everything. Like you have the group licensing agreements with certain schools, like the Brander group. You have one team who are actually suing each other right now. If nobody knows that, they are suing each other right now. But, like, there's so much that goes into NIL that you don't even think about. Like, yeah, the brand signs with the athlete, but you also have these other things. Like, for example, I work with a lot of trading card companies. So I work with Topps, I work with Upper Deck, I work with On It, which is a specific NIL trading card companies on it. But the things that they have to do to use imagery with the marks and logos on it for the schools, time consuming, beyond time consuming. And like Panini, they usually do the NFL cards. I worked with them on their recent pack that they released, which was the NFLPA draft picks. So everybody who went in this year, I did all of those images as well. So if anybody wants to buy a pack of Panini cards, go for it. But yeah, I mean, like it's been a learning experience. But I will say that I completely agree with what's happening on Capitol Hill from working in the industry. There needs to be more regulation. The NCAA needs to stop being a bystander. They need to take a side on it. And I think that they should take the side of the athletes, not the brands. And I also think that people can use this as a hot take, but whatever it is, because I've worked in the industry. I've worked in this industry now for almost a year, but Title IX needs to be implemented into NIL deals.
Right.
95% of the NIL deals that happen through collectives specifically is to male athletes only. The female athletes, aside from, the bigger ones like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, everybody like
Olivia
that,
Dunn.
Flau'jae, like they deserve everything that they have, and I will. They are some of the sweetest people. I met Flau'jae at an event that I had to go to for my job. They're such a sweetheart. But the other girls deserve the money too. it's not just about the male athletes. Like, yeah, everybody watches it, everybody covers it and everything else, but that's not it, you know? Like, they put in just enough effort as the men do, and they deserve to be compensated as well for their name, image, and likeness as well. And I think that's really crucial, and that's what needs to happen. But I mean, other than that, I've learned a lot about what photography licensing and how that entire situation is. I mean, I've had to switch sometimes and do like improper use without a license situations for college athletes, where I would see our images, USA Today's images, being used, and not only do they not have a license for it, but they're not licensed with the school, and they don't have the athlete's permission to use their images, and they're profiting off of that. I've had multiple instances of that. But it's photography licensing. If anybody, I'm putting this out there, if you want to work for a photography agency like a Getty, a USA Today, an AP, anybody, do your due diligence. Even if you're a photographer, know your rights to your artwork. That is one thing that I will say. Stand up for what you take, and make sure that your employer does the same also.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's definitely awesome to hear, that, Abby, I don't even think you realize this, but you're a part of a team, or really a part of a specialty that's revolutionizing sports right now. Because we think about, like the landscape of college sports, since NIL was brought in, it's just so much happening. I mean, it's moving fast, and even though, like, I did always have that belief that, college athletes should in some way receive some form of payment for their name, image, and likeness.
Me too.
What was something that, I was really looking into was, how is NIL going to be relegated? Like, how are we going to determine how much an athlete should be paid, based off their popularity? And, and I'm sure, like, you're looking at the stats every day, where you're seeing that, there's athletes with like a $5 million NIL valuation. There's, athletes with $3 million, like $900,000. I mean, there's some kind of influence that they're able to provide for a brand. And, now we're starting to see, Caleb Williams in the Heisman House commercial, or in a Wendy's commercial. Or now we're starting to see, seeing Olivia Dunn promotes, like a women's athletic clothes. We're doing things like that. We're seeing, like, Shador Sanders and a KFC promotion, a commercial with Deion Sanders. I mean,
exactly.
Like, there's so much that's going into NIL right now, and how, with this case that's is happening in Washington, where, hopefully it does go in the way of the athletes, because, for decades, athletes have fought tooth and nail to be able to, like, get what they deserve, which is, payment for the work that they're putting out, and also just representation that they were giving to their colleges pretty much for free. I mean, like, there's just, like, they're there on athletic scholarship, some of them, not all of them, like, keep in mind.
Keywords there. Not all of them.
Yeah, but just even also the amount of money that college sports, from football, basketball, baseball, track and field, volleyball, soccer, have produced over the years. I mean, like, it is about time that, they're, like, NIL is being utilized in every form, and once the brands, like, saw that was passed, they hopped on it just instantly. I mean, it's incredible how I, like, in the time that we're in right now, where, and I think also, just the influence that college athletes have, because, if we think about it, like me and you, like, we were around the athletes all the time at school, like, whether that was in class or intern at the facilities at Carnesecca Arena. So, like, we understood, like, the life, like their lives in some way, just of who they were as student athletes. But I also think, there's a generational value with it. I mean, growing up, I'm sure, like, being a Devils fan, you had your favorite player on the team, and I'm sure, like, you probably had a poster of him in your room somewhere. Just like with me in baseball, I had
Mhm.
poster of my favorite player on the A's, like in my room. I collected the baseball cards and did things like that. But I think when we think about how our generation looks so much to influencers, at the same
We
time we
do.
see like college athletes as influencers, because with what's amazing about what I see, what college athletes that have an NIL deal, they're not just using it to make millions of dollars or
No.
like blow money or anything like that. Like some of them are actually using it to make a difference in their community. Like this has allowed athletes to go back to their hometowns to put on camps, like just based off
Exactly.
of like their name alone.
Yeah, it was
Or
like 40, I want to say, because I was, like trying to see if they needed anything like there. I think over the summer, there was over like 45 individual student athletes that signed with Next Gen Camps to do camps in their hometowns or in the town of where they go to college, just to give back to the youth. And like also today, I don't know if you saw it, Tevion Williams, who plays for Stanford, he took an NIL deal with Cheez-It, I want to say. And he gave the money that they gave him to his favorite hometown teacher and said, use this money for you because you inspired me and you helped me become who I am. And I think that warmed my heart today reading that story. But yeah, I mean, like, scholarships are not enough for athletes, I will say. I went to the NIL summit. Like, I was there for 3 days with some of the most influential student athletes. And I was talking to a majority of them because, like, I was probably the only person who was working in, like, one of the booths that was close to their age. So, like, they noticed me. And, like, I saw a few of the girls from St. John's, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, long time no see. And they were like, oh my gosh, Ivy, But, like, they deserve so much credit for everything that they do. And especially, like, now that they are using their platforms to not only benefit themselves, but to also benefit the schools as well. And I think that that's one of the reasons why there needs to be more regulation. And also, I will say this, the Big East Conference, with UConn winning, and, like St. John's is coming up with Rick Pitino. Then you have Creighton with that amazing run in March Madness last year as well.
Right.
That specific conference and the businesses that surround St. John's, even like St. John's, from what I've seen over the past like 8 months, they have no NIL deals at all. These kids from St. John's, and it breaks my heart.
They're in New York City of all places, like
Yeah.
the capital of marketing and everything that's, like branding wise. I mean, yeah, I mean, like there definitely needs to be, and you're pretty much playing in in the biggest markets, and not just the country, but in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, like in your Division I university, that's probably about to be transcended by, one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time, Rick Pitino. But yeah, like there has to be some improvement there.
I really hope that the second that the season starts and they go full swing, that more happens for those athletes. Whether it's Double J's Deli giving money, whether it's, Teachers Federal Credit Union, which is a sponsor of the school, because they're allowed to do that due to the regulation. Sponsors of the universities are allowed to sign NIL deals with the athletes, but the school cannot be directly involved. But I will say, like, St. John's, like, those kids go through it, and they went through it, especially with Mike Anderson, and they deserve a lot more than what they're getting. Like, sign those kids to NIL deals. Brands, hear me now. Sign St. John's and all Big East. Sign Seton Hall kids. Sign Villanova kids. Right. Sign more UConn other than the star players. Sign everybody in the Big East to bigger NIL deals than just the standalone, like, one-off. Those kids work very hard.
Yeah, and just to advocate a little bit more for the Big East Conference for a sec, like, in my whole opinion, I believe that the Big East is one of the best basketball conferences in the country, bar none.
100% agree.
Just because, and I'm sure if you probably had some experience with this too, but I'll just say, like, towards the latter half of my senior year, I had the chance to do to broadcast like one more game. Like I wasn't sure if I was going to broadcast one more game with
Yeah.
St. John's after they lost to I'm trying to think, what was the last game I broadcast? I think we played UConn at the Garden. That was like the last game that I thought I was going to be broadcasting. But I call it the official last game that I broadcast for St. John's men's basketball. It's like my encore broadcast because they made it to the second round in the Big East Conference tournament. And just saying this, alone, like if you ever get a chance to, experience like a college basketball conference tournament, highly recommend to check out the Big East Conference tournament. I mean, you're like you just think about how massive it can get. Like you're at Madison Square Garden. I mean, you're pretty much paying $20-$40 to watch 5 NCAA tournament teams for one weekend. And and you're even seeing some stars that were probably going to end up in the NBA someday.
Exactly.
And I mean, you just think about how much of a push there is and what Val Ackerman has been doing at the Big East Conference with trying to keep the conference cohesive, trying to keep it collaborative of all the schools, and also just trying to maintain it as a basketball dominant conference. Just understanding like they had their past as a football conference, but now there's a change in the times where we're solely focused on basketball. Now on top of that, just going back to St. John's for a minute, we just think about what can be provided at a school, especially with the history of basketball at St. John's, with dating back to the Lou Carnesecca days, and now with Rick Pitino and Ivy. And I don't know if you had this this premonition when Rick Pitino was hired as the new coach, but I felt like that was like the true passing of the torch with Lou Carnesecca transitioning over to Rick Pitino being the St. John's head coach.
Completely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have pictured it any better. I mean, just thinking about what he's going to do, and people could debate me on this as well, but with what Deion Sanders has been able to do at Colorado, with how impactful he's turned that program around, and especially with the athletes now being more promoted, like being on ESPN and Fox every weekend, I feel like Rick Pitino could have that same effect at St. John's.
I said the same thing the second he was hired to my boss, because my boss calls me on Microsoft Teams and was like, "Did you see Rick Pitino was hired by St. John's?" And I was like, "I did see," and I was like, "And I am very hopeful for my school now."
Yes,
I'm very hopeful.
I don't think I've been this excited about St. John's basketball, really, even 4 years I was going to school there. I mean,
me too. I'm with you.
I think this year I have a legitimate excitement about the team now, and it sucked that it had to happen after I graduated. So because I can't experience that as a student now.
I'm in the same boat.
but like I tell people, no, there's nothing wrong with supporting them as an alumni, because St. John's still within my heart. Just as a college, but it's definitely great that you're in that field of NIL, and hopefully you can now be closer with the St. John's athletes if they do reach out to you in some way.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful for that. I mean, I've tried to keep my contacts at the athletic department. I mean, Doug is still there. Shout out Douglas Nover. But I mean, the NIL space is the wild, wild west. It really is. It's constantly changing. Who's in the space? Who's going out of business? It's very all over the place. But I will say that the chaos is exactly what the sports industry is. So I went from one chaos to another. So yeah,
this is definitely one way to put it. Yeah. But Ivy, it's been great having you on, and we're coming close to the end of our time together. But I want to close out our conversation with just knowing that the OFPs, they've learned a lot about you. Like they've heard about the adversities you've handled being a woman working in sports, and of course, with this podcast being an open podcast where we want to empower everybody to seek opportunities working in the sports industry. What piece of advice would you give to the OFPs that will hear you, and what is something that you're hoping for yourself going forward?
Some advice that I will say is use your connections at school to your advantage. And I will say that do not and if anyone will come away with something, I want somebody to come away with this. Do not ever, no matter what happens to you in the sports industry, no matter what it throws at you, do not stop believing in yourself. It is one of the hardest industries to be in, but as long as you have that drive and that passion for what you want to do, nothing will ever come in your way. No matter how many times you get those rejection emails, no matter how many interviews you sit through, believe in yourself and your capabilities, and I think that you will go far. Just believe in yourself, and also, like, network, use your professors, use your fellow alum classmates as well to talk to, because you need to be able to support each other. That's another thing, is that especially through going to 2 different universities and 2 different programs, like my St. John's people are some of the tightest relationships and contacts I have. Yeah. You included too. You and Thomas Kavanaugh, my buddy.
Shout out Tom.
Shout out Tom. I miss him, but like he is seriously, and you as well. You guys are so passionate, and I will say, like, you guys inspire me too, is to keep going. The passion, the dedication, the hard work, the literal blood, sweat, and tears into all of it. You guys deserve the most success as well. And I think that if any of the listeners, like, if you have that one contact in your class, the one that you're going to stick by, you stick by them no matter what. And you always be there to support them and cheer them on, because I think that that's crucial too. And being in the sports industry is to have each other and to build upon one another. But moving forward for me, my dream is to still be an arena manager one day for somewhere. Would it be nice if it was the Prudential Center? Absolutely. Or Madison Square Garden. But I'm very hopeful for what the industry is going to bring my way. And yeah, I'll be in NIL for a while, or until I have my opportunity that presents itself to me, for sure.
Man. Yeah. I mean, you're about to make me tear up on my own podcast. Don't do that to me.
But I mean
it. Well, I mean, Ivy, I believe in you. I've always believed in you since the day I met you in class. So
thank you.
I mean, like I like if OFPs like listening, like if you were there with me and Ivy in class at St. John's, I mean, you can tell that this girl is going places. I mean, she was just like, she killed it, like academically, work wise, like intern. I mean, she did like, and I saw it too. I mean, I just, like, the times that we talked to each other, I mean, I just saw the determination in her eyes that she was not going to give up, like at any point. I mean, I've strongly believed in her, and I've, just saying this now, like, it's definitely great to see where you are today, just knowing like how much, how hard you worked and how dedicated you were to the craft of being in the sports industry. So yeah, definitely big shout out to you. Gotta hand you your flowers for, how you've inspired me, and how now you're going to inspire the OFPs for where you are today.
Thank you so much. You're gonna make me tear up now.
Yeah. But Ivy Bourke, I mean, this has been her on the Off Field Players podcast. Again, thank you so much for coming on and telling your story for another informational interview.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll always be here. If anybody needs any help, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will do everything in my power to help you also.
Right on. Yeah. And with that, like, I'll definitely make sure to leave the link to Ivy's LinkedIn account in the description for those that want to reach out to her, connect with her, and just ask her any more questions if that's something you want to do. But as a reminder, just if you tune into the video version, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with anybody that you know that's trying to work in the sports industry, or just trying to find motivation to progress in their career path, wherever that may be. And also, if you listen to the audio version, either on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or Radio Public, make sure to follow. And also, leave a 5-star rating for the podcast as well. It does help out a lot, and it does help with the reach of me trying to grow the off-field players family, and also just trying to get the podcast out to people all over. I'm not trying to stay domestic. I'm trying to reach international, and don't worry, I'm trying to get more international guests on, that are working for, sports organizations either in Europe, Asia, Australia, South America, you name it. And, this is going to entice me to learn a few other languages as well. So definitely please, do everything you can to help reach the podcast in any way. And lastly, make sure to follow the podcast on the social media accounts of Instagram and TikTok at OFP_podcast. Again, Off Field Players is on Instagram and TikTok at OFP_podcast. So make sure to follow the accounts there, and stay tuned for future episodes to come in the near future. But that's going to wrap it up for me here on Off Field Players podcast. Thank you again to Ivy Bourke for joining me for the 5th informational interview here on the podcast. And also thank you to everybody that tuned in and listened all the way to the end. And as a reminder, make sure to stay safe, stay healthy, stay blessed, stay motivated, stay determined. And as always, make sure to achieve what you believe.